Very involved in the Omaha ecosystem and in France as well, because I spent 3 years in Paris. So we do work with startups and IP transactions, fundraising. And then just mention that I worked also with a cross-border platform for entrepreneurs for a startup for about 5 years. So I really gained some experience in cross-border collaboration that way.
Perfect. And on my side, I'm Tiff, and I'm actually I would say that there's like different ways I would describe myself. A few words. I identify as someone who's very connected. I like to connect to people, to my surroundings. I'm also someone very authentic and international, as you can probably hear from my accent. I'm not from Boston, obviously, but I've worked in very different countries, like in France, in the UK, in South Africa, in the US, and those were like great experiences for me to see like how actually I can connect to different people, obviously connect to create a network, but also create to connect work opportunities, right? And I'm also a public speaker, so I write about different topics around how you can connect with authenticity, and also about product market fit, which are some topics that I've covered a lot over the past 2 years for now. So that's a bit about like who I am. And perhaps I can then go ahead and share my screen to start today's conversation. So let me go ahead. Can you guys see my screen right now? Perfect.
Yeah, we can.
Perfect, that's great. So as I was saying, different ways I can describe myself. And also my job today is I'm working in sales. And the reason why I'm working in sales is because I think people have nurtured for way too long a disrespectful image about salespeople. And I'm really here to show them that people can build actual authentic relationship with salespeople who genuinely care about solving their problems. So that's why today I'm a head of sales working for a company that's called Flix. And what I'm going to walk you through today is how you can authentically connect with people, create collaboration, and that actually leads to opportunity. Maybe to start with the structure of my talk here. So I'm gonna walk you through why it's actually important to connect. How do you effectively do so? Why action and nurturing are key to develop long-lasting relationships with people. And obviously today's world is it has gone virtual over the past year and so, right? So how you can effectively connect in a virtual world. To start with, I wanted to share with you one of my favorite quotes. It's from Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. This is by far one of my favorite quotes because I really relate so much to it. Okay, try to picture this. Imagine you attended a party 5 to 7 years ago, right? Would you be able to tell me every single person's name, every single person's job, the reason why they were there? Probably not, right? It would be hard to remember. But what you can remember from that party, from that situation, might be if you had a good time, if you laugh with someone, if you cried because of some or because you hurt yourself, a feeling. That's what you would have left from this encounter, from this situation, from this party. And why I'm saying this? I'm saying this because networking, because community building, it's exactly the same. What you want to do whenever you connect with someone, it's to leave a feeling behind because you want that person to associate that feeling to you. And for me, that's how you create successful networking, and that's the reason why people want to connect, because they want to be understood, they want to be seen, they want to feel something, so that afterwards that's what they would have left of you. And if you manage to leave that feeling to someone, that's your key to being remembered. So obviously leaving a feeling, okay, that's a fact, right? But how do we actually do so? Like, how do we effectively connect with someone? How do we leave that feeling into someone's mind. Well, spoiler alert, if I can say so, everything that I'm gonna say into this presentation is a no-brainer. You're gonna say like you're not gonna learn anything exceptional that you've never heard. But for some reason, what you're gonna see is that most people in 80-90% of cases actually rarely apply all of this. And that's why you end up in some situation, in some networking events where you don't even know why you're talking to a specific person. All right, so tip number one here is to be in the right mindset. It sounds obvious, but try to picture this. I think we've all encountered those people, right? Like you go to a networking event, you talk to someone, and for some reason, that person cannot stop talking about herself, about her product. She might even try to be selling your product to you, and God knows you haven't even said a word for the past 5 minutes. Annoying, right? You don't want to be that person, and you don't want to be talking to that person. My point is, why is this happening? It's happening because whenever we go to networking events, we all go with specific goals in mind. What's wrong with that, you might say? There's nothing wrong with having goals, but the problem is you cannot walk in every conversation with goals in mind, because what happens? What happens is that you have a one-to-one interaction, and all you're going to think about for the first 2 to 3 minutes is, okay, is this person worth my time? AKA, is this person going to be useful for me? Is she going to be able to make me an intro? Is she going to be a potential customer? And if not, I'm just going to leave it, right? I'm just going to leave the conversation and just go do something else. And that's exactly where it's wrong to that way, because the mere fact of being there and thinking like that, you're cutting every ways of making a connection happening. Instead, what we should do say is to really give before taking. And there's 1,000 ways you could do so. You could, even myself, like I would say a few years ago, like I thought, well, there's nothing I can actually give to anyone. I'm no one. I don't have a lot of connection. Try them. You might be surprised if you just ask them, how can I help? You might be surprised of the answer you can get. And another reason why I'm saying that it's better to go in with an open-minded spirit is because you can really not know after 2 or 3 minute conversation if the person might actually help you. And the reason why I'm saying that is because a year and so ago, before when this old time when we could go to networking physically, right? I attended a job fair, not because I was looking for a job, but because the companies that were advertising jobs could be potential customers for my company. So I went there, and there was like a 23-year-old guy that started to talk to me. He was looking for a job, but I had nothing to advertise. But for some reason, I just decided to hold on a conversation. We chatted a bit, we laughed even, and we left the event without anything happening. And the funny thing is that about 2 weeks after the first encounter, he wrote me on LinkedIn to ask me if I was interested in an intro to his dad. And turns out that his dad was actually the VP of analytics of a Fortune 500 company that later became one of our customers. So really, like, there's really no way that we can know by the first 2 to 3 minutes if the person can actually someday be helpful. So that's why I'm saying, like, really try to go in, to forget about your goals just for a little while and just enjoy a conversation. The second thing, after having the right mindset, is actually quite obvious, is to really build that genuine curiosity, to really find the common ground. And it's really simple, but it's all about asking questions. What that means is that to that point, you've spent a few minutes trying to get to know the other person, asking questions about what is it that they're doing at the event, what they're looking for, maybe to share something about like what are their personal interests, because what you want is to find that ground that's common to you. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they like American football and you as well, and there is your trick, after to build upon that connection. You just need to find, and what's better way to find than asking questions, right? So that's my second point. And the third one The third one, to effectively connect with someone, is to introduce yourself in a way that stick out of the crowd. And what I mean by that is that to that point, you've probably spent, let's say, 4 to 5 minutes without even talking about yourself. So you already made an impression there, because about 70% of people to that point would have already talked about themselves, try to introduce themselves and make the usual intros. So now what's happening? Now what you want is to properly convey what is it that you're doing, what is it that you're uniquely known for. So the question eventually comes, right? You haven't talked almost for about 5 minutes, but people are going to ask you, what do you do? You don't need to have the best intro ever to stick in someone's mind. You just have to be different enough, to add that little spice that will make people to remember you. And the big question is, how can you do it, right? Like, there are several ways of doing it, and I'm going to cover two of them and add a small tip. So because I find them like very impactful whenever you try to introduce yourself. And you'll see I put a link within my presentation that goes to an article that I really liked if you want more details and if you want to really work on it on your own. But let's go ahead with the first tip. The question, how do you answer, what do you do? The first thing is, you are not your job, right? I know that we tend to always think about what is it that we do. We describe ourselves by what we do, but we are so much more than that. Every single one person here is so much more than what you guys do as a job on your day-to-day life. And instead of saying, oh, I'm head of sales at Flix, the real question is, okay, what is it that you would like to be known for? Try to think about that question to craft your answer. All right, here is an example. Maybe you noticed earlier that before saying that I'm head of sales at Flix, I tried to describe the reason why I was actually into sales. And one way of describing that, and the way that I would like to be known for, and the reason why I love what I do, is because I think people have nurtured for way too long a disrespectful image about salespeople. And I really want to show people that, yes, they can build authentic relationship with a salesperson that actually do care about solving their problem. And that's one way of describing that I'm a head of sales, right? But it's just different enough to explain the reason why I'm into sales. And automatically, people will connect. Like they say, oh, interesting. So you want to build authentic connection. It resonates much differently than just saying, oh, I'm in sales, right? So that's one way of saying it. A second way you could use is to think about the problem only you can solve. What is it that you solve at work and that you are uniquely qualified to do? Or what makes you especially effective at solving this problem? Johanna, which is the person who's detailing everything in the article, believe just as much as I do that every person is in some ways a problem solver. You just have to find out what is that you're really good at solving. So with an example here, again, instead of saying that I'm head of sales at Flix, I could say that I believe people are increasingly working remotely with a poor work from home setup, which is basically what my company does. We deliver a solution to help people be more comfortable at home. And I uniquely connect with companies to help them create the best remote condition for their employees. And that's already a different way to present why you are good at solving people's problem, and also to talk about what is it that your company actually does. And it's something different, again, than just saying I'm head of sales at Flix and then one or two liners about what the company does. So obviously, as you can imagine, this takes a little bit of time. So before going to your networking event, you might want to take some time before that to think about your intro and to think about what you want to communicate to that person. What is it that you want to answer to that what do you do question? So those are, I would say, like the two main ways that I really like. And there's also one tip that I would include and I would emphasize here is the importance of showing some vulnerability. the reason why I'm saying that is because, again, creating a connection with someone, like, you have to show something about yourself. And if you want people to show something about themselves, to be vulnerable as well, there's no better way than to lead by example, right? And here, the main question is that do not hesitate to use some sentences like, I'm passionate about, what excites me the most is, or what keeps me awake at night is. Those are like type of phrases, type of sentences that helps you emphasize something you really like, something you're really good at, and it helps to convey an emotion, an excitement, and you allow people to also share that excitement with you, ask you more questions, and after, that's how you start creating those great conversation, basically. But to sum up what I just said over the past few minutes, if how you connect effectively is in three ways. Like, first, to be in the right mindset, to really go in there, to forget about your goals, to try to think about how you can give before you take. Then to make sure you build genuine curiosity. So ask question, ask lots of questions, and try to find that common ground in which you're gonna start building upon after for your relationship. And third, make sure that you have an authentic way, a distinct way to introduce yourself, because this is what also is going to help you stick out and stick in people's mind after the event. So the good news is, from now, what you've done is already great. You've opened a door, you've connected with someone, great. But the work doesn't stop here. The work just started. Now the real question is how you actually build those long lasting relationships, right? And the two main key here aspects for me are action and nurturing. The first one is quite obvious, is whatever you promised, deliver on it, right? So if you promised an intro, if you actually said that you were going to follow up on them, or if you were going to I don't know, send them some articles, whatever the next step are that you agreed on, make sure you do it. Because there's nothing worse than someone saying, I'm coming back to you by the end of the week, and then we hear nothing for more than a month. It damages your credibility, and it's not a great start off, right? Like, to build upon that relationship. So obviously following up on what you promise is key. But the second and the most important one is nurturing. Now here you have two choices. Either you are kind of a superhero and you have an incredible memory, and actually on this call it's going to be quite nice, like, to talk about it with Tom or even Steve, like, those are like two people, they have great memory, so like they can remember on top of their mind, like, a lot of people and how they can follow up with them. But if you don't have I would say this super memory, if you're just like me, and it's a very selective memory and there's only so much you can remember. And to be perfectly honest as well, I struggle a lot if I meet someone just once. For me to remember their name, it's very difficult. So I had to find a trick, right? Because I do want to build long-lasting relationships. So my way of doing thing is very simple. It's to build a database. Doesn't need to be a CRM, right? I mean, you can go fancy if you want, but just a simple Google Sheet or Excel sheet. You build a table and you put, obviously, contact details, job titles, but very important are like those two columns for me. The comment one, make sure you put some comments, just 1, 2, 3 sentences about the context you met that person in, about maybe the stuff you had in common, maybe a common interest. I don't know if they like American football, whatsoever. The point is, make sure you write a few lines, so that if you go back to that sheet, I don't know, a few months after, you're gonna remember exactly instantly what happened with them. And another one that I really like is this priority column. Everyone has their own skills, but it helps you prioritize, like, who is important and who is a bit less important, to follow up very quickly. And after that, obviously, your own calendar is your best friend. Set up some reminder and make sure that you follow up on what you're actually saying, because that's what I said before. If you want action, you need to also put some reminders, because the more people you're going to meet, the more actions, the more follow-ups you're going to have. And obviously, you don't want to be that person a few months after you start networking like crazy, thinking, I think Tiff was right. I wish I did. No, we don't want to wish, right? So the sooner you start, honestly, the better. Like, this has saved my life, because in a year and so in Boston, networking like crazy with like a bunch of people. If I hadn't had this spreadsheet, I think I would have gone crazy, because impossible for me to remember everyone's name. So those are this is my advice really to you, to build this database, sort of, to make sure that you don't forget anything whenever you meet someone. And last point, I would say, just wanted to touch quickly upon like how you can connect effectively in a virtual world. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, because there's so much I would say, like, so many people, so many content that actually explain this. But I just wanted to remind you like 4 tips, so that you make sure that whenever you try to do so, you make it happen and you make the best out of your time. The first one is, again, very simple, but it's listen to yourself. What that means is, we spend hours a day doing on Zoom meetings, whatever, on Google Meets, and obviously there's some points you have that extra hours at the end of the day, and some of us, it happens to all of us, right? Sometimes we just don't feel like it. We just don't feel like talking more. We just want to go outside and do something else. Well, don't force yourself. That's the first thing, because in the mindset of trying to open up, it's not gonna work. You're gonna waste your time. You're gonna waste the other one time. The second is, sharpen your first intro line. What that means is, because there's so much noise online, we're over communicating, we are over receiving texts, emails, etc. You want to make sure that the first few sentences that perhaps through emails or through LinkedIn, if you want to ask for an intro or a connection, that they are going to be impactful. So something, about connecting around their interest, like, but try to really be customized in your approach, because otherwise it's going to be very hard for them to accept the connection. And it's also very valuable whenever you talk to someone. So if you manage to connect, the very first, I would say, minutes of connecting in a face-to-face meeting with someone we barely know are going to be crucial, because they're going to know in the first few minutes, okay, is this person in front of me worth me spending half hour, an hour more in front of my computer? Again, we spend already a lot of time, so you do want to make sure that whatever you say at first, it does have an impact at someone. The third one is to really focus on quality over quantity. And what that means is that, again, the way you connect with someone, you have to make sure that you spend your time trying to get to know the other person. Connecting to the point just before, we are having loads of conversation. And the thing that's very important is that right now we are in a work from home setup. So whenever we connect with someone, we are actually working from home, right? So, like, for instance, right now I'm actually Zooming from my bedroom. And whether I want it or not, this is a really different setup than if I do it from work. So being in my home right now talking to you, this already brings some sort of intimate or intimacy within the connection, within the talk. So whether we want it or not, we are already more capable of connecting. So that's why I really focus, if I do some virtual networking, I really focus on actually quality and spending more time with the person, because there is actually more chances you're going to find a great connection right there and actually have follow through, because people are craving this connection even more than we cannot see each other. And the last one is to really allow yourself to be even more vulnerable. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we are online right now. So there's a lot of body language that we have in real life that we don't have in virtual connection. So you don't want to over exaggerate your facial expression, and you do want to use a lot more of those emphasizes that I said earlier about, oh, I'm excited about, I love doing something. What keeps me awake at night is because when there's nothing more than verbal cues and a little bit of facial expression, we do have to use it even more. to create that connection, to find that empathy within the person in front of you that's going to help you connect. So that's really what I wanted to say about connecting in a virtual world. And to finish off my presentation, I just wanted to come back on the very first quote that I said earlier, just to remind everyone here that as human beings, we really mainly remember emotions. Everything we go through, encounter, situation, we really remember feeling at the end of the day, much more than people's name or even what is it that we're actually doing. And connecting, creating a network, building a community, it's exactly the same. You want to make sure that you are making people feel something after they meet you every time. And that's the best way for you to start off this connection and to make sure that you are off to a great start to build this long lasting relationship. And the good news in that is that you don't have to make extra effort. You don't have to find out something absolutely extraordinary. No, you just have to be yourself. You just have to be yourself and to find the optimum way to actually do it. So there you go. That was my message to you, I would say today, in how you can effectively connect with people to create collaboration and opportunities.
Great presentation, Tiff. I don't know, Jason, is this my cue now, or do you want to say something?
No, I thought, yeah, that was a really great presentation, and yeah, I would love to, have you lead the next part of our moderated discussion here, and yeah, also invite the audience if you guys have questions to, add them in the chat as we go.
Sounds great. Yeah, great job, Tiff. And I think it was a really good mix of how to connect with people in, emotionally and make a great connection, even though it might be virtual. So not just having this kind of impersonal connection. So yeah, just have some questions and we'll discuss, how we both have connected with people and tried to build relationships throughout the pandemic and even previously. Yeah, you mentioned, it touched a bit upon being known, standing out and being known for something unique as opposed to just, selling your product or something. So what, as you networked with this person at that conference you mentioned that had the father that was the VP. So how do you think, you must have had some good conversation topic that stood out and he remembered you. So what made you unique, or what do you want to be known for that makes you unique as a cross collaborator?
Great question. Thank you. Actually, yeah, during that event, that's exactly what I was telling him. I was telling him about my job because that's actually what he was curious about, and I really presented him the sales job as I described you. Because for me, what I try to convey to people is that whatever I'm doing it because what I love is I crave connection. I crave connecting with people. I want to get to know them. I want to know what makes them tick, and I want to know like how from being two strangers we can end up by creating actions, by collaborating. And with that person specifically, like he was curious to know about like my job and what is and the reason why we were actually I was actually doing sales. And what was interesting is that we talked and we laughed a lot about the sales job because I presented him a different angle of that job. Like he really thought, like most of us, like salespeople, like very annoying, like someone who's calling you every time out of the blue, and then you don't have time, and they want to sell everything out of you, until you actually say no 7 times, or and I really presented him, of the way that actually that's not the case, right? It's like the whole point is that there's an authentic way of doing things, and we're not forced to be annoying with people. Like we can just connect when it's the right timing, and we can talk about stuff, and we can actually answer the problems that they have without sounding too pushy or without sounding like we want to sell something they don't actually need. So this perspective, I guess, like made him laugh a lot. And eventually, after like a 5 to 7 minute conversation, he actually asked me the real reason why I was here. And when I told him that, that's why I think a few days after, like he came back to me saying, hey, by the way, my dad actually is working for a XYZ company. So I remember you said that you wanted that, like, do you want an intro? And I was quite surprised, right? Because I didn't expect that. But to my point, you never know what can lead, from a conversation. So I would never say no to a conversation.
That's great. And yeah, that's a great point on being authentic instead of just demand up front and say, I need this or I need this. Really being authentic and making common ground, I think, is important. So my next question is, how do you do that, and do you find it difficult? But you must have found ways to do it when you are doing this across cultures, and even we have different cultural environments, between Boston and the Midwest, and then different startup ecosystems or different places of business. Different ways of doing things. And then, we both spent time in France or other countries. You mentioned a couple other countries. How do you find common ground when you just meet the person, whether it's virtually or in person? And I could chime in, and I like to do what you said, whether it's talking about football, like European, soccer, or American football, or a favorite coffee or something, but somehow we have to get that out of the conversation. So how do you find common ground?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly my like to your point. I think, Tom, is that finding common ground is something that's not so easy, because the first thing is that, okay, what if I try to find common ground and then by trying to do so, you actually look ridiculous, because the person is like, okay, we are at a networking event. Why the hell are you talking about, I don't know, sport or whatever? But in fact, it's not the case at all. Just because when we go to networking events, especially, it's after a long day of work, and all we've been doing all day long is talking about work. So when you actually meet someone that for once try to connect with you on a different level, it does make a difference. And what I found out is that working in different countries, there are always ways, you can test drive, like what common interest, like on which level you can connect. And you mentioned sport is always something that you can put on the table. I know that I play with food a lot. Like, for instance, I know I'm a big foodie person, and food, honestly, wherever you are, like, there's always people who are going to connect around food. But most importantly, what I really do, and to go back to my point earlier, is I ask questions. And by asking questions about just, even if you want to start, not to go into like a really out of topic stuff, you can just ask questions about the reason why people are here. And very often, like, they're gonna start like telling you some cues. And for instance, like I remember, like, once I connected with someone and I said, okay, what's the reason why you're actually here? And that person told me, well, I came in here because I wanted, to try to meet some investors, and I'm not finding anything else for my project around like my financial company. But I really like also being here because I'm having a good time. And that guy had a beer, so he had a beer. So he said, oh, it looks like you're really liking beer, like, do you have a favorite one? And then from there, it's like you create like another conversation. So from that beer conversation, we actually ended up by talking about the reason why he was doing his job, and he talked about lots of his passion. So for me, it's really just asking questions, even though it's question about just the reason why you're there, and picking up on some cues afterwards that people say, and always digging, right? It's like they're saying a cue, you take that cue, you ask more question about it, and then eventually they will share more than just their work and what they are really here for.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's always good to learn about the local food and drink, right? I find it that I love food too, so I could talk about it for hours. So it's always fun to find what people enjoy there, what food and what local drinks. So when you were in Boston, did you try some local breweries, or did they just take you to Sam Adams?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I had, like, for me, it's always tricky to start with the beer question, because I'm actually more, of a wine person. But even that, it's like you start with the beer, and then the person is gonna ask you, what's your favorite beer? I'm more into wine, and then more conversation, and then people start laughing about, for instance, how too French I am for liking wine, and you know what I mean, like. Possibilities are endless, but I would say the more you ask questions, the more you try to pick up on some cues, and the more we manage to go on a more personal level, and that's how I think you can really create those bridges effectively.
That's great. Yeah, wine is good too, and it's always fun to do wine tours or things like that. So it just like finding common ground about the local flavor or gastronomy. It's really important because that's a place's culture too. So yeah, and then it's still kind of related to that. You talk about those topics, and then maybe like you said, you make a list or a database and make a note of if someone mentioned my kid's got a baseball game or this tournament, or my so-and-so is having this event. Our law firm has a program where I don't use it enough, but I try to remember things where you make that type of note, and then you can follow up and you say, well, how did your kid's tournament go? Or how did this go? So that it shows you are remembering what you talked about. You're not just looking to do business, and you are remembering those things. Or thank you for recommending that winery or that brewery. So I guess the next, I've got a question on just what's your advice for following up with people, and when you follow up with people, how do you find a balance between following up and staying front of mind and pestering and not doing it too much if maybe they're busy and they just didn't see your message, or maybe maybe it helps to follow up again, or maybe we wait a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, two things here. First, in terms of following up, for myself, what I do is that I set some reminders. I look at my calendar, and I'm setting some reminders because I cannot remember every possible ways. And on my Google Sheet, what I also do, is like I try to date time about like the last time that I actually interacted. Now I also saw like one of the questions from Jennifer, who asked if there was like any tool that I might recommend. To be honest, there are like lots of tools. I don't especially, to me, like I didn't make the move, to actually buy a specific tools, but you have some sort of CRM tools that are made especially for networking. What those tools are great about is that they are like made for it, right? So you actually have just like a CRM for sales, for instance. You really have like a pipeline where you're gonna have like all your contacts. You're gonna be able to set up some automatic reminders, and you're gonna be able, like to follow up on time. And they're gonna remind you, just like Tom said, about the cues you should actually use to follow up. So I don't have like I would say a tool specifically in mind, but for sure, like if that's of interest, I can definitely have a look and send it, across with the presentation. But for me, because for instance, like I do it, and it's not 100% of my time to connect with people. For me, the Excel is enough. But I think it really depends on people. I think if it's what you do like 100% of your time, you might want to go into a tool, definitely. So that's the first thing. And to answer the second part of your question, Tom, there's a fine line, about like doing effectively and doing too much, for sure. And to me, the first thing is that obviously the first follow-up, no problem to do so. You follow up when you're supposed to do it. And exactly as you said, you can use, whatever context you had on that last conversation to actually start following up. So that's the first thing. But afterwards, if the person doesn't answer, or if the person doesn't show up for some reason, here my point is that I will follow up, but like for instance, a week after. And if I do so a week after, I will provide some value. And the way you provide some value can be very simple. It can be around content, right? And the lines that sum up, that discussion that you put into your database are going to be important. As you said, like maybe if they love like a special football team, or if you guys talked about, I don't know, a science topic you are both passionate about, then the next week, after he doesn't answer, you can follow up. Oh, hey Tom, I found out a great article about this and this. I'm sharing it with you, without even asking anything. For them, it's already going to be a reminder that, oh crap, I forgot to answer Tom there. And that's a way, to not sound like you're very pushy, and you just share an article, share something. That's a way I'm following up. And other ways, to keep, I would say, in touch, and to keep to make sure people keep you in mind, is to use also special occasions, right? If you're connecting about like because you guys both love the Celtics, then whenever there's like a big win of the team, then thought about you, the Celtics won this and this, maybe someday we should see a game or whatsoever. Like make sure you have like those touch points. That could be once every month, or I don't know, like whatever priority this person have. You set up also the timeline, and only you can know. But make sure that every time you provide value, or you come up with something that's not just, hey, you owe me something, right? Because obviously that's where you start annoying people in the long run. But if you go back with those little attention, or I would also say, if you come back with like a happy Thanksgiving, and saying like some notes for New Year's Eve, or whatsoever, that's also a good way to stay in people's mind.
Very good points. Yeah, all those are great in terms of those are touch points, and they're good reasons to reach out, as opposed to just constantly being, like you said, being pushy, or having an ask. We're all hopefully going to be coming out of the pandemic pretty soon, and then we'll figure out, people will figure out if they're going to keep remote working, or everyone will meet in person again, and all of that. So what's your perspective on remote work? You touched on that a little bit, and if do you think it matters where people are these days, or do you think people will work from location to location throughout the year and move and keep meeting more people, or do you think how do you think that will be in the next like 6 months?
I think that's a great question. I thought a lot about that also because of the type of companies that I'm working with. Like, we're all about remote working. I think my perspective on that is that whatever happens, like as human beings, we always adapt. Sure, at some point we suffer. Everyone is craving connection, real physical connection, with people. But the reality is that going out of the pandemic, there's some stuff that are going to stay. And I think that lots of people have really loved also in some ways remote working, and that they want going forward to have some sort of hybrid mode. And I have like loads of people around me that are telling me that they would love to be able to work, like from a few months from a location, a few other months from another location. And it's not because they want to be, in two different locations, that they are not going to want to connect with people. So that's why, like, for me, like, the future is really going to be a mix of people that are going to be able to connect virtually across countries. I think that's going to be more and more the case. For instance, I have one of my best friend about like 2 months ago. He was invited to deliver a conference for Harvard. And for him it was very exceptional, and he had a blast. And this was made possible because we were in the pandemic anyway, so like no one was in a physical setup, and they made it happen. So I think the future will be a mix, of like both people wanting to still connect, but that we will have to organize those times where we can do both, because people are going to want to make bridges across countries, because that's already possible. And after all, right, like right now I'm in France. It's like almost 8 p.m. and I'm talking to you guys, and I'm missing Boston a lot, with the situation. But I think that's really where the future is going, is a little bit of hybrid of both ways. And we are both going to want to connect physically, locally, but also try to hold on and build those bridges across countries or across states in the US, for instance.
That's one of my goals, is to be able to work in one location for a couple months, maybe work in Paris for a couple months at a time, work for some clients, and then work here. So I love that mentality of have the physical events, meet people, and do that. If we start doing that all the time, there will be a lot more food and drinks to try in a bunch more locations, for people. People will have, and a lot of sports to keep up on, you have to know all the local teams. Yeah, that's all great advice. And my last question is kind of just to have that, tie up, on that common ground. So how soon, for us Boston and Omaha people, we're here, and it might be similar in Paris. I don't know what the weather's been like. I think Europe got a late snowstorm too. We had flurries this morning and we had flurries yesterday, and it's been cold for spring. And I think Boston had some also. The trees are blooming. And today is at least sunny, but it's still chilly. So hopefully it gets warm, and there will be some patio seating. So as a French person, how soon is too soon to drink some rosé?
Oh my God, it's never too soon, Tom. It's never too soon. Like right now, like honestly, right now, even in Paris right now, people, are so craving connection, outdoors, that they just go, nearby the water, they sit with a bottle of rosé, or like white wine, whatever, and they just have sips. And it became such a problem that the police, had to actually put some rules in place saying that people cannot consume alcohol, outdoors, because that's the thing in France, right? Like we can actually drink alcohol outdoors, which is not the case in Boston, for instance. But for us, I guess we have to put some rules so that we stop, doing that. But it's never too soon. I'm sure that as soon as we see like the first lights, the first nice temperatures, people are gonna be outdoors again, trying to invade patios and connect again in real life.
Sounds good. Yep. And so I don't have any more questions, but it's been really, really fun talking. So I'll let Jason take over. But yeah, hopefully we can all connect in person sometime in one of our cities, and we'll all keep bridge building.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, great presentation, great conversation, and yeah, appreciate everybody coming out, the questions here, and yeah, excited to have everybody involved and staying in touch either through our Prepare for VC community. I think you're all on our community page. If not, it's just it's through our prepareforvc.com website. There's a community button at the top, and we have a couple other events coming up. You can check out on our events tab. Some where some we're hosting ourselves, others we're promoting other community-driven events that members are organizing, and are great for the startup audience and community we have. So I think yeah, I was excited about all the advice you guys provided here today, and definitely looking to put this into action, and hoping some of these can turn into in-person events sometime in the near future. And in the meantime, we can stay connected through virtual events like this.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Jason. Thanks a lot, everyone, for the opportunity.
And thank you. Thanks for the presentation. It was really fun to be a part of.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
You too.